Dear Patriots, before the news starts, please subscribe to our patriotic channel by clicking the subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up to this video. Don't forget to leave your opinion below in the comments section. Share the news on Facebook and Twitter so you friends see it. Thank you.
Joe Biden explains why Trump supporters love him more than Trump. Joe Biden went on Megyn Kelly's show to argue for his potential 2020 presidential run. Megyn Kelly pointed out that many blue-collar Rust Belters love Trump and he would need their votes. Biden argued that these Trump supporters actually love him more than Trump. The critics will say you're too old, you're going to be 77 in 2020, you wouldn't have any new ideas, you've already run twice and lost, you'd too have to promise it would be one term only, and that the blue-collar Rust Belters that you need to get elected already love Donald Trump. How can you overcome all that? Asked Kelly. They love me more. But the first part's correct, responded Biden. Well, I'm not sure I can overcome the front end, but I understand the Rust Belt. Donald Trump has no notion what those people are going through. If you take a look, and, it's not a criticism, it's an observation, 'cause look, but for 77,000 votes, this would be a different race now, said Biden. Come on, let's take a look at this, and, you know, they call me Middle Class Joe. It's not meant as a compliment in Washington, it means I'm not sophisticated. But I understand. I understand what built this country, and the only thing I know is the middle class, their hopes, their aspirations, because it's where I come from, it's what I am, said Biden. Who does he think he's fooling? Trey Gowdy blasts Democrats for being hypocrites for awful thing they let Obama get away with. Trey Gowdy challenged Jeff Sessions during an congressional hearing. Gowdy gave a passionate speech about justice and called out Democrats for being hypocrites at the same time. I want to start with something that's very important to me, and I think it's important to all people in this country of good conscience, irrespective of their political ideation, and that's the independence of the Department of Justice. In my judgment, 2016 and 2017 have been challenging years for the Department of Justice, said Gowdy. Mr. Conyers asked you whether or not it was appropriate for the president to weigh in on an ongoing investigation. And of course, the answer to that is no. It is not appropriate. It's not appropriate in 2017, continued Gowdy. It wasn't appropriate when President Obama did it in the IRS targeting scandal. It wasn't appropriate when President Obama did it in the ongoing investigation into Hillary Clinton's server. It is never appropriate for a president to tell a Department of Justice what outcome it would reach. I just wish my friends on the other side of the aisle would have the same kind of outrage when President Obama did it as they do now, said Gowdy. How do you restore people's trust, Republicans and Democrats, confidence in a Department of Justice when it seems like different rules apply depending on who's in power? Asked Gowdy. Sessions responded that we intend to do our work, according to the established principles of the Department of Justice. We will not be infected by politics or bias. We will only make decisions we believe are right and just. Rush Limbaugh crushes media for not understanding Trump's funniest tweet ever. Rush Limbaugh crushed the mainstream media for missing the humor in President Trump's now famous tweet. In response to insults made by North Korea, President Trump made the following tweet. Why would Kim Jong-un insult me by calling me old, when I would never call him short and fat? Oh well, I try so hard to be his friend, and maybe someday that will happen. The left and the media are melting. Presidents shouldn't talk like this. Presidents shouldn't be insulting foreign leaders like this. This isn't how it's done. This isn't presidential. This isn't the proper decorum, joked Limbaugh. So it establishes once again these people don't have a sense of humor. They literally cannot sense humor. It just doesn't occur to them. But their hatred, their willful hatred of Trump is so visceral that they're incapable of seeing satire or parody, said Limbaugh. I mean, this is hilarious. He just called Kim Jong-un short and fat, while denying that he ever did it. It's hilarious and they're all just beside themselves about this, said Limbaugh. He went on to compare the media to a cat chasing a laser pointer. If you have a cat, you can drive the cat nuts with a laser pointer. The cat can never figure it out. Some people think it's cruel if you just keep doing it. The cat will continue to try to chase it, it will paw it, and it will try to catch it. These Trump tweets, Trump speeches, they're like the laser pointer to a cat, said Limbaugh. Do you think he's right? CNN's Jake Tapper makes shocking confession on how his network has treated Bill Clinton's accusers. Now that so many Democrats are being accused of sexual assault, they have stopped trying to argue that assaulting women is a conservative problem, like they have been trying to do in their war against Fox News. And now that the Clintons are out of the spotlight, they are finally able to admit the obvious. Bill Clinton is a sexual predator. You know something? And maybe it's the Southern accent that reminds me of this, but I think we are, and we've seen some of this in the press. There was a story in The Atlantic called Bill Clinton, A Reckoning, started Tapper. Chris Hayes said something the other day, and other people have. But the accusers of Bill Clinton back in the 90s were never given the credence, and treated with the same respect that these women are being treated, said Tapper, comparing the way Bill Clinton's accusers are treated in comparison to Roy Moore's. And I think that there is something to be said about how society has evolved since then, but, in addition, it's hard not to look back at that period and think, you know what? The media treated those women poorly, said Tapper. Are you at least glad that the mainstream media is finally acknowledging Bill Clinton's victims? Even if it took way too long? This is not a question of innocence or guilt, Jeb Bush makes strange verdict on Roy Moore. Roy Moore has been accused of sexual harassment by many women. However, there is not a lot of evidence which sparks a debate on how you treat the situation. According to Jeb Bush, Moore should drop out of the race for Senate, despite what the courts say. This is not a question of innocence or guilt like in a criminal proceeding, this is a question of what's right and what's wrong. Acknowledging that you're dating teenagers when you're 32 years old as assistant state attorney is wrong. It's just plain wrong, said Jeb. We need to stand for basic principles, and decency has to be one of those. In the really poisonous political environment we have right now, one of the rules I think has to apply is that when you attack somebody on the other party, and the other team, for doing something wrong, when it happens on your team you have an obligation, I think, to speak out as well, he said. Countless others have weighed in, including Ted Cruz. One of two things should happen: if these allegations are true, Judge Moore should drop out now. Today, started Cruz. The people of Alabama deserve to have the option of voting for a strong conservative who has not committed criminal conduct. Or two, if these allegations are not true, then Judge Moore needs to come forward with a strong, persuasive rebuttal demonstrating that they are untrue, he said. Kim Jong-un sentences President Trump to death for calling him short and fat. Kim Jong-un apparently took a lot of offense by President Trump's latest playful tweet directed at him. Why would Kim Jong-un insult me by calling me old, when I would never call him short and fat? Oh well, I try so hard to be his friend, and maybe someday that will happen, tweeted President Trump. Kim Jong-un did not see the humor in this. Ro Dong-sin-mun from the North Korean state-run media outlet KCNA wrote that Trump has been sentenced to death by the Korean people. Trump betrayed his true colors as an old lunatic, mean trickster and human reject during his 1 night and 2 days stay in South Korea, says the article published 4 days after Trump's tweet. The worst crime for which he can never be pardoned is that he dared malignantly hurt the dignity of the supreme leadership of the DPRK. Trump, who is no more than an old slave of money, dared point an accusing finger at the son. He should know that he is just a hideous criminal sentenced to death by the Korean people. He will be forced to pay dearly for his blasphemy any moment, they wrote. The one who violated the dignity of the people and insulted them should never expect their pardon. The Korean people will regard the face of Trump as a symbol of wolf-like U.S. imperialism and as a target of merciless retaliation and send him to the hell he likes so much to tout, they continued. Rabid dogs barking can never frighten the Korean people. It is the principle and way of the DPRK to toughly react to any acts of hostility. The U.S. will have to bitterly experience what it dislikes most and witness what it thought of a nightmare, they wrote. Wow, Kim Jong-un is a very sensitive guy.